understand who you are, my dear. It's currency.
Diana, there has to be two of you. No one is above tradition.
Fight them. You are your own weapon.
Spencer, rated R, in theaters November 5th.
I am from beyond. Listen, and all you desire will be yours. Welcome to Spider-Dan and the Secret Balls. Prepare for Prattle.
Nativity Stories.
Welcome to Prattle World. I am your host, the ever-amazing, ever-spectacular Spider-Dan, and in this podcast, I spotlight entertainment's best-kept secrets that a mainstream audience may find boring. And welcome to Alternativity Stories, a month-long look at alternative stories set around the most wonderful time of year. And today we're doing something quite different from the killer Santas and the weird and wacky stuff I usually do. We're getting a little bit deeper. It's getting a bit factual and fictional at the same time. It's getting to get a bit spooky as well. And I have two very special guests here today. Speaking of them, this film is about a married couple. One, the husband, is a royal pain, and the wife is someone who puts up with him.
He's beloved by all.
So speaking of that, here are my guests, Mike and Megan Burton. Welcome back to the show, guys. It's been a little while since you've both been on this one. Other than the Disney discussions, we did our Coco and Book of Life podcast over a year ago for the Day of the Dead, Dios de los Muertos. So we're back with another interesting film, but I've ushered this onto you. I've given you an interesting film. Ria was going to join us, but unfortunately she can't make it. But yeah, it is something a little bit unique, this one. So I was very interested to see this. It sounded interesting. It was, not really in my wheelhouse, but I'm open to films. I'm open to experiencing different things. But I'm very interested to hear what you guys have to say on it. Before we get started, though, I want to know, because we're covering Spencer from 2021, and I wanted to know a little bit of your feelings about Princess Diana, because this is kind of a factual, fictional, somewhat a fable based on a true tragedy, or a fable on a true tragedy, which it's kind of subtitled as the film begins, which is trying to say that it's not factually accurate, but we're going to kind of explore who Diana is and who she was as a person. So I'm going to ask you, Megan. I know you guys watch The Crown, and you're fans of The Crown as well, which went into the research of this as well. Do you know much about Diana? Are you a fan of her? You guys, I was quite young when she died, and you guys would have been even younger, so I don't know what you know about her, or how you feel about her, or her legacy, her fraught relationship with the royal family and the paparazzi, and her humanitarian work.
Tell us about all of it, Megan. Right.
All of it in one sentence.
Right, go on.
One sentence.
1 minute.
Sum her up. Go.
Diana did good stuff, but was a sad person, and then sad things happened. That's Diana.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty spot on, yeah.
But,
I didn't really know anything about Diana, if I'm being completely honest. Like, as you said, like, I was little when she died, so I remember being at my aunt's house on the day, I think, that it happened, or it might have been the funeral, maybe. Yeah. And I remember my mum and her being upset, and I didn't really understand why. But no, aside from that, it's just stuff from The Crown. Like, aside, like, the iconic things like the revenge dress and like how nice she was to people during the like AIDS crisis. But yeah, aside from that, just The Crown.
And when we watched The Crown, we did more research.
Yeah, and then I did some like deep diving into certain things just to see a little bit more, because I find shows like The Crown and down to like period things, but especially when they're crossed with like historical, like what is it, a historical drama?
Historical
I
fiction,
quite like.
Yeah, or some biopics, but biopics recently they muddy the waters with and stuff. But Narcos you quite liked, the Pablo Escobar series.
But yeah, aside from The Crown, the like main stuff, and then just a couple of like background researchy things that I've done because of The Crown. I don't really know much about Diana.
And what about you, Mike, as well? Again, you'll have been of a similar age. Do you remember, her or any of the stuff in the papers or her dying or, again, the funeral, anything like that?
No, it's been one of those things where she's just she's always been dead in a sense to me of kind of the memory of the world has always been post Diana. I remember the newspaper covers, I think the most, her face printed on those. And again, like Megan, I don't really understand what's going on. And my family are not royalists in any way. So they never really, like in passing, Mum might say, oh, I was sad about Diana, or she might get referenced in something, but I didn't really get it. I think I just knew just from being around people talking about it so much, kind of like Megan, like knew about the car crash in Paris, knew that she was, a lot of the bad stuff that happened to her people attribute to Charles and Camilla, and I loosely knew about that kind of thing and her connection to the royal family, and that she was troubled. But aside from that, I didn't really know anything until we watched The Crown, and then I did a little more research, and that goes into, a lot of her life and things. And then after The Crown, I listened to the audiobook of Prince Harry's book, Spare. And he reads it, and it's really interesting. I would recommend it to people. Again, I'm no royalist anyway. And by that, when you read that book,
get that across.
He's not.
I'm not a royalist.
No, I'm not. But when you read that book, you go, okay, he's definitely not either. But his book's quite interesting because the first third of it is basically him dealing with, but first being obviously with Diana, then the passing of her, and post Diana, and then middle book was Army, and the end of it was him and Meghan. But I didn't know a huge amount, but I feel like with this film, if we hadn't seen The Crown, or we didn't know what we already knew, I would have been a bit more lost. But I think because The Crown really goes into, 2 seasons of The Crown is all about Diana. Well, not all about Diana, it's about the family, but it's when Diana enters the fray, it's that, and so that's kind of where it's.
I feel the same, Mike, because I felt, because it's such a small amount of time that we're looking at in this film. It's only 3 days. It's Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, Boxing Day. It's a very small, in 1991, a very small holiday, a very small amount of time, and to compress all of her life into one film is a challenge. And to all of the elements, I think they do kind of reference quite a lot of it, like the fashion, the problems she had with self-harm and bulimia, and her throwing herself down the stairs. Those things are referenced quite a lot, and the problems she had, and the affair, and you name it. So I do think, to a degree, they do manage to encapsulate a lot of it in a very short amount of time, and put it on the screen quite well. But I'm the same. I have not seen The Crown because I'm not really a royalist anyway. I know my family have some kind of, they kind of like the royals a bit more than I do. I'm kind of not as interested. I think it is kind of fascinating in a way, like the traditions and the way they have to be, and keeping up appearances and all that, and the established kind of order of things. But yeah, I decided to watch a couple of documentaries, and I do recommend them both. I watched The Princess, which came out the year after this, which again is not one for showing kind of like both sides. It doesn't show the paparazzi in a nice light, does not show the royal family in the greatest light, especially Charles. And then I listened I watched Diana in her own words. There was a tell-all book that came out, and the sources were protected. They weren't allowed to be revealed. Later we learned that it actually was Diana herself, and she gave this information in a series of tapes to the author. And in this documentary, you hear those tapes.
That's in The Crown. There's an episode where they go into them writing
when
the
the
book,
tapes become public. Get mentioned. I think we hear
he won't name his sources because he doesn't want to put them in danger. But it turned out to actually be, years later, she had to deny it, but years later it was revealed to be her herself who gave all that information, very personal information. And yeah, both really interesting documentaries. The Princess 2022 one's interesting because it's told entirely through archival footage, so you don't get like interviews or talking heads or anything. It's literally just radio interviews, papers, you name it. It's very interesting, a very interesting way to portray a documentary. But yeah, it's something. I remember her dying. I came back off holiday. I remember there being a big deal. I remember some of the news stories. I remember the Charles and Camilla Tampax dirty conversation. I think even as a child, because I think I asked what a Tampax was at the time. Because
I don't know what you guys are talking about.
So there was a secret phone call between Camilla and Charles that went public, and and he said, like, he was saying something dirty, like, "Oh, you're gonna have to get a bigger size of Tampax or something," and it was just like really gross, dirty.
Oh, I think there's a reference to that.
Filthy,
Crown again.
like proper filthy conversation.
Again, the Crown does not paint the royals in a great light. Like,
no, I imagine not.
It shows a lot of the issues there. Yes,
the corruption and the entitlement and all of that, and the systemic problems. Yes, which again this film goes into. And yeah, it's interesting that she, like, again, it was a bit, some of the stuff was a bit weird that I learned as well. Like her meeting Charles when she was 16 was a bit weird. And then them getting married when she was 19, bit weird. And then her uncle vouching for her virginity, also a bit fucking weird. And it almost was like they had to they would, like, it's like the royal family was looking for like a brood mare, like they needed somebody who could give them a child. Really kind of like Henry VIII shit, which we'll get into as well with this film. It's very, there's some parallels there. I'm kind of, amazed by her and also like intrigued, and I can see why she was why she became such a public figure, a fascinating big that people clung to because they felt they could connect to her. But ultimately, like Pablo Larrain, the director, says, she's magnetic, but she's ultimately enigmatic. We don't really know her. And even the director who spent years on this film says he still doesn't know who she is. And we only have so much information about her. And that's why I focused on those two documentaries, because it sounded like we'd get a bit more of her side of the story, as opposed to like the one that Harry and William did and various other ones. So that's why I focused kind of on that one. But yeah, it is kind of interesting. Again, like Megan put, she was a sad lady, but she kind of almost wanted this fairy tale. And, fairy tales are inherently dark. They are inherently tragic, a lot of them. And I think this film paints that in a very much that kind of light. But I think, again, she was so young and so naive. She didn't quite know what she was getting herself into. And then it just kind of leads to more and more tragedy compounded on top of it. I was
going to say, the more I learn about her, the more I do admire her in certain ways. I think that, she was obviously, as Megan said, she was very sad. And there were issues there. She wasn't faultless in some of her actions. Sure. However, I do believe, or I like to believe, that if she had not had the accident in Paris and she'd survived and she hadn't had some sort of other type of tragic death and she was still alive today, I believe the world, I hope at least, the world would be a better place. It's a weird thing. I've thought about like all the social things she's done. Like, Megan, I think, mentioned with touching people who have HIV and AIDS. She was like one of the first people, like as a celebrity figure, to ever do anything like that. And it completely changed the whole perception of that disease almost overnight, or at least shifted a large portion of it and opened up lots of conversations. And there were lots of instances of her being this connection between the almost deity-like royals and the normal people who are peasants. And, those are extreme versions to way looking of people in the family and out. But having her, she was kind of like a middle ground. Yeah. And I think that there's a lot of similarities between her and Meghan Markle and Harry, especially being heavily affected by that. And it's understandable to see why he would have the feelings he does about the paparazzi and things in relation to Markle and Diana, but also searching for someone who's who's fine to be in the system to a degree, but does question some of the things that are only there really to serve itself or tradition. Yeah. And I think that Diana, really, obviously Harry would be on a different path, not Meghan, there's lots of different things, but I would love to see if I could see like an alternate reality of anything. I think my number one would be, what if Diana hadn't died? Would she have continued with her social striving?
That'd be a very unusual what if comic book, wouldn't it? What if Diana lived?
I'm sure there is a book or something about it. There's ones about Kennedy dying and all kinds of time travel stuff. So I imagine someone's written one.
Oh, I guarantee there's some fan fiction out there or something of some kind. It's really interesting, like the royal family, because everyone seems to have very strong opinions on all of them and on specific people. I remember the Meghan Markle thing, and I remember when they said, we're going to step away. We're not going to do the things. We're going to keep one of the properties, I think 2 of the properties, but we're not going to engage in the stuff. We're going to lead our private lives, and we're not going to be involved. We're not going to get the money. We're going to do other stuff to make money. And I was like, yeah, fair enough. You don't want to be part of that system. You know what? But I remember people at work. I used to work at John Lewis, so there was a few royalists there. They were like, "How fucking dare she? How fucking dare she do that? She knows what she's doing. She knows what she's marrying into." And I'm like, "Look what happened to Diana. Like, she was, again, she had bulimia. She cut herself, would throw herself down the stairs. Would, had to have, in a lot of ways, she was a kind of a forerunner of kind of mental health and feminism, and there was so much stuff she was doing." Got rid of landmines out of Angola as well.
Oh yes, yeah, I remember that.
That was a huge thing, and that was when she wasn't technically Princess of Wales, I think, at that point, or she was coming away from that. So however you feel about her, there were. She's a human being, and I think a lot of people put a lot of things on her. I don't think she's maybe quite. I think people want to put her into kind of sainthood, which I think is dangerous for any.
Which I agree with.
Person.
Yeah, I'm not saying that at all.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of things she did well and good, and kind of brought a human element to the royal family where the others kind of didn't, in a way. But she was the most hunted person on the planet. I can guarantee there's been no person since her that's been hunted as doggedly by the paparazzi, people, press, and even the royal family as much as she was.
Well, like, did you like her? Like, I know I probably think a bit more about the world. What if Diana was here or not? But like, do you have any strong feelings about Diana? Of like, at least what we've watched in The Crown.
Not really.
She's all right.
She'll do.
From what you've seen, do you think she seemed like a good person?
She seemed like a good person, but she also just seemed like she needed help. Like, I don't really have any opinion. Like, really, like I don't, in my living memory, I don't remember her. So there's no significance to me personally. Like, watching stuff on TV, it's like, oh yeah, I'm not the kind of person to think about what if that person didn't die, especially if they're no relation to me. Like, I have no concept of ever meeting or having met Diana. Like the likelihood of me ever meeting any royal is incredibly slim. So like, I can't perceive that. So I would never think of what if.
And you've never really had, like, you and I, when we first met, people would ask us about the royals, and a lot of the time they're like, "What's your opinion on the royals?" We're like, we literally don't even have one. Not positive, not negative. Yeah. And after watching The Crown, I'm like, I still don't know. I'm like,
I feel like after watching The Crown, I've got more of a weird respect for the royal family, because they have like, again, if you think of the scenario with Diana, like, they shouldn't have even got married in the first place. He never wanted to. He didn't want to. He wanted to be with Camilla. Like, if those rules hadn't have been in place, the stupid rules that they have, then he would have been able to just marry the person that he wanted to marry in the first place, and then it literally would never have happened.
What happened to Margaret, didn't it?
Well, yeah, it did happen to Margaret, but also, like, even if they had gotten married and then it didn't work out, they would have been allowed to get divorced. But I think they did get divorced eventually, but like, they separated, and they were still married for like another 3 years before they could actually get divorced, because again, of the rules of the royal family.
Yeah, they had to carry on their duties, so she had to carry on, but they did it separately, I believe, because again, the marriage was quite strained, and and there was, again, problems coming and going, and Camilla and stuff, and and again, this particular film kind of portrays, like, again, that it's kind of happening here, but again, the divorce wasn't official until like 1996, I think, or the Queen announced it or something. But again, they were having problems from the get-go. It wasn't like they were like, "No, this is fine, this is all good." I do find it interesting, but I'm not like, I don't think I'm going to go down like a massive rabbit hole about this. I don't think I'm going to be like, "Oh, I want to know what Charles is like," or I'm certainly not going to look up Prince Andrew, I'll tell you that much.
They omit him from a huge chunk of the Crown.
Queen's favourite son.
Yeah, there's on screen.
I think he was, though, wasn't he?
He was. He was known as her favourite.
I'm pretty
they mentioned
sure,
it in The
like,
Crown
it's a
as well.
thing. Like, he's known as being, or was known as being her favourite.
Probably why he's not seen any. Well, they settled it, didn't they? It was settled, I believe.
Quietly under the table.
Yeah. So, you know what that means? It means he fucking did it.
100%. 100%.
Yeah, fair enough. Anyway, enough about him. We don't want to talk about him. That's the one part of the royal family we don't want to talk about. But let's talk about the film itself. I think we've talked about Diana, and again, respectfully. Let's talk about this version. So Pablo Larrain, Chilean director, he did a film called Jackie, which is about Jackie Kennedy, which is...
I said about that.
Kind of has. I've not seen it yet, but I'm definitely interested after seeing this. And he did another kind of semi-fictional biopic. And we have Twilight's own Kristen Stewart in this, and we covered Twilight a while back. Me, Lucy, and Scott. She defended those films. I feel a certain way about them. They're fine.
I feel a certain way about the first one, which I think is objectively terrible. And I think the films after that are actually not too bad. They're not amazing, but I'm like, you know what? They're not awful. But the first one is
Twilight film is top tier.
So bad. No,
so good.
When you showed it to me,
it's so good because it's so shit. It's chef's kiss.
It's like The Room, isn't it?
There's like so many bits. I believe it or not, fucking loved Twilight. I am the core demographic for that movie franchise when it first came out.
You're a Mormon.
Hello. So I fucking loved that film. I went to the cinema, saw that film, and then went to the shop and bought all the books straight after watching the film. And now I can't remember the point. Because it's so shit. It's so fucking quotable because it's so shit. It's like there's.
I enjoyed them. Don't get me wrong. I enjoyed them. But they're great. Enjoyably shit.
Yeah.
And I'm not a massive fan of the Harry Potter films, but I can watch them.
Incorrect, but it's okay.
I'm just saying. I'm not. My favorite is Prisoner of Azkaban. I think objectively.
Also incorrect.
Megan likes all the Megan likes her favorites are all the ones that no one's favorites.
The weird ones.
Yeah, I mean, Chamber of Secrets is one of our favorites, and that's considered the worst, which is apart from Deathly Hallows Part 1. Anyway, sorry.
Anyway, sorry to get you on a. I didn't want to upset you about Harry Potter. I appreciate your respect for them. You've read the books, but the films I've seen, they're fine. I think my Marvel.
He hasn't seen them all.
Marvel Cinematic Universe is my kind of thing because I read those books. Those are the books
They wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for Harry Potter. No, obviously joking. Sorry.
Filming things back to back.
Well, Deathly Hallows came out in 2008. When did Iron Man come out? 2008. It's a continued legacy. Nothing to do with
just carries on.
X-Men and Spider-Man films before that.
The popularity continues, just sucking the life out of the Harry Potter franchise. And I remember somebody at high school was like, Harry Potter could beat Spider-Man. I went, fuck you. No, they couldn't. Spider-Man's going to...
Most superheroes could beat Harry Potter just because as soon as you get rid of his wand, he's basically useless.
It's also because Harry Potter doesn't really do that much. Everyone else does the stuff.
But that's true, but you just think like the ultimate
web him up, done. And then if Spider-Man wanted to punch a kid, probably could.
If there's a Patronus around, cool Harry Potter. No, not a Patronus. If there's a Dementor around,
a Dementor.
Cool Harry Potter, and then he can get his Patronus.
And he's pretty good at Expelliarmusing people
if
you've already got a wand.
Harry Potter?
If you've got a wand, Harry Potter can take you on. But it's just Harry Potter's like, if Harry Potter fought Vader. Like
much like the royal family, it's Harry Potter is a UK institute, isn't it? It's a British institute.
This is true.
It is full of very problematic people at its core. It's this
is also true.
Oh God, what happened? It's all political. It's so political.
Kristen Stewart, Twilight.
Anyway, back to the film.
I was surprised that it was her. I'm not going to lie, because I don't overly rate Kristen Stewart as an actress because I've only really seen her in Twilight. So like, and also I was an Edward fan, so obviously it's the same as Troy and Gabriella, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna have Zac Efron. I was going to say.
I'm gonna have that thing against the character because I loved Troy, I loved Edward. So like,
so you're going that bitch.
Yeah, that fucking bitch coming to our country and pretending to be Diana.
How dare you?
She was fantastic in this film.
I've only seen her in Twilight, and there's a film called Adventureland, which I watched because I think Jesse Eisenberg's in it, and I think Bill Hader pops up in it.
I think Ryan Reynolds as well.
Yeah, and I was like, this sounds awesome. And I watched it, and I was like, this is not good. And it's just a really boring, crap, not funny, annoying film.
Yeah, loads of people recommended it to me, and I saw it, and I was like, this is garbage.
It is trash. Really? Sorry to any Adventureland friends.
Make Megan watch it.
No. But with her in this, I said to Megan, I was like, I think this really shows that Kristen Stewart can actually act really well. I just think it clearly shows that in the prior films, it's been the script and the direction.
And then Mike was like, oh yeah, and then also Robert Pattinson is a really good actor as well.
Yeah.
He was like the two leads in the film and Twilight are both absolute shit, and then they go on and do these really cool things.
Even Taylor Lautner, like he's not the best, but he can be really silly, and he actually he's got a bit of range.
Let's be honest. Going off what Megan said earlier, they are enjoyably shit. Those scripts are fucking dreadful, and I think even the best actors in the world couldn't bring those words to life.
There's literally a line in the first one where one of the friends has a worm on the end of the stick, and he goes, "Hey Bella, it's a worm, it's a worm," and then shoves the worm in her face.
Yeah. That sounds like high school to me. That sounds like high school. Yes. There's some fucking bizarre lines I remember. But you named my daughter after the Loch Ness Monster?
Oh, yeah. I
was like, okay, sure.
That's a good one.
Again, we won't talk about Taylor Lautner's character. That's too close to Prince Andrew, I think. What happens to him at the end? Anyway.
An innocent imprinting.
Yeah. not
grooming. Definitely not grooming.
I mean, he's a wolf, so there'll be that kind of grooming. But yeah, anyway, spoiler for a group of shit films. Anyway, I have to agree with you guys. I think she was really good in this. Like I was genuinely surprised. I was like, I remember hearing it being announced. I was like, I don't know. And then I saw some of the photos and I went, okay, I'm digging this vibe. You know, it could be good. But again, I'm not really a royalist, so I'm probably not going to run out and go see her. But yeah, we'll see what happens. She got a bit of Oscar buzz as well. It didn't happen, but she got a bit of Oscar buzz because of this performance. She spent like 6 months perfecting the voice as well, the accent, and you can tell. You can really tell. Like, I think the director Pablo Larrain says that she's not doing like an impression because it could get very like Saturday Night Live kind of like, you know, very kind of, you know, punny and silly and stuff, but I think it's kind of somewhere between the two. It's still very much Kristen Stewart, but also very much Diana as well. And again, I spent a day watching those documentaries, or 2 days watching those documentaries before I watched the film. So I definitely got a sense of it. But I definitely, it was when she was being like erratic and like very quickly spoken, her speech was very fast. That's when I was like, oh, I think that's a bit more Kristen Stewart. But also, I don't think I ever heard Diana speak like that in public, so I don't know what her, you know, upset or frantic and angry or scared sounds like. So I was like, no, it's this. It must be this. And yeah, I absolutely kind of bought in to this performance and the contrasting nature of it, the ups, the downs, the joyful moments are just as powerful as the tragic moments, and it is focused on her, and the camera is so close to her, all like it's right in her face,
magnetic.
Yeah, much like the paparazzi wanted to be. They would literally go right up to her and be like, "Right, got you," you know, and that's kind of what the public wanted. That's what they were paying for those papers for. They wanted to be part of her life and inside of, you know, what makes her tick, because they wanted to be close to her in a sense. And that is kind of almost intrusive as well. Like, it feels like we're intruding on this very kind of painful, you know, anguish that she's forced to spend time with the people she doesn't care for, and they clearly don't care for her, and the emotional distance and literal distance and space they play with is superb. I think the costume design is amazing, the production design is amazing, the cinematography is truly excellent. I don't know what you thought of the kind of outfits, Megan. I wanted to ask you, because I'm not a fashionista, I'll be honest. So I don't know what...
Megan's currently wearing her top backwards.
I put my jumpsuit on backwards.
Yeah, very fashionable. It was a choice.
She's fashionista. No, it's Easter.
You know, we're blokes, Megan. So we just go, that woman's in a yellow dress with a pirate hat. You know, that's all.
I'm not far off that. A drag race is probably about as far as I get with.
Yeah, I'm not fashionable.
What about the vibe of the film? Because I thought you weren't going to like this.
Is it too weird for Megan?
There are some weird bits, like the connecting to Anne Boleyn.
Sure.
I found odd, and I found it a bit jarring. It took me out of it a little bit because I didn't really understand why. I don't know if I just missed that.
I think it's meant to be Diana. This version of Diana is kind of seeing herself in Anne Boleyn, which is Henry VIII's first wife, and basically being like, he's essentially, because he's cheating on me and wants to do something else, he's essentially gonna force me to, he's gonna behead me, he's gonna kill me. So it's her kind of...
I think the book says she was a martyr or something, something
so
it's martyr.
Her kind of seeing herself in Anne Boleyn, and the projection of Anne Boleyn kind of almost like a warning, I think, of her being like, he's gonna kill you, kind of.
I enjoyed it. I did think it was a bit weird, as I said, the Anne Boleyn stuff. I think that just went over my head a little bit.
I think it's kind of like, it's the parallel is that Henry VIII wants a child, wants a boy. Can this woman provide the child? No, she can't. sack her off. She's useless. Or with Diana, we've got the boy. That's all we need. You know, we don't really need her, but we'll play pretend that everything's okay for the public image, for the eyes of the public. So I think it's kind of that, and I think she feels like she's going to die. I think in this film she believes she is going to die, whether it's her that does it, whether it's the paparazzi or whoever. I think there's a knowledge here for her that it's going to end in tragedy, which it does. And I think without saying that it's going to end in tragedy, the film is saying there's no way this is going to turn out well in any scenario.
Like Marie Antoinette, where Mike thought that she escaped.
I didn't know.
Even though you literally saw her get arrested.
But if you don't, like, this is why I watched that documentary, because I knew she died in the car crash. I know that because it was, you know, I was around when it happened. But again, all these other stuff, I didn't know about the bulimia, but that becomes quite a big thing in this. You know, it becomes like a huge issue. As
we've discussed, I think if you don't know anything about her, I think this is a difficult film to really understand. I think
it's not a biopic in any way. That's what I thought when I saw this advertised years when it came.
I saw.
I was like, oh, a Diana biopic. I don't really care. Yeah. And then knowing what it is now, I'm glad I didn't watch it at the time, because I do feel like, as we were all saying, like, if I'd have watched this when this came out before we started The Crown, I'd be like, what is going on? What's the context? Nothing's being explained. And I feel like I want to watch that Jackie film as well, but I'm like, I need to watch probably a couple of documentaries
about Jackie
before, because the only stuff I know about her is some of the conspiracy theories around the JFK shooting, which is one of the only conspiracies I would probably subscribe to.
And also she's in an episode of The Crown.
Oh, of course, yeah. Jackie and Onassis, because they talk, don't they? And it's their conversation happens, and then it's only shortly after that, the character who meets her is like, oh, sees the thing happen. But the weirdness, like, there's a film called The Favourite. Have you seen that, Dan?
Yes, great film.
So, and I know you've seen Poor Things, which Megan has not yet seen.
Yes.
Which I really want to show her. But I got The Favourite vibes from this, but wound back a bit to some degree.
Considerably. The Favourite is way weirder.
Well, this is the thing I was going to say. I feel like the audio of it that they use in Poor Things and Favourites, you know, the dissonant violin thing. I think that's like a new age thing, because in like lots of horror films, like Hereditary is in it. In films like Lighthouse, Northman, things like that. And then also in The Favourite, Poor Things, and then in this film,
I know it's intentional, but I absolutely hate it. I hate it so much. I hate it. It puts me on edge. It makes me feel like tight in my chest. I really don't like it.
That's the point.
Because I
know it's the point. I fucking hate it.
Yeah. Did it make you feel immersed in the film though?
Did it make you feel for Diana? Did you feel like you were going through it like she was?
I was going to say I struggle putting myself in other people's shoes, but that's not true, because
you have empathy,
ridiculously empathetic.
Too much empathy.
I am too empathetic.
You're like an empath.
I absorb people's emotions. No, I
don't give a fuck about people.
Fuck you. Fuck you.
Megan. If I've ever met anyone who says that, that's Megan.
It just makes me feel uncomfortable, which is obviously what she's going through. I don't think I feel the chaos that she is obviously feeling, but it just makes me feel really uncomfortable whenever I hear the dissonant violins. I hate it so much.
I've started really liking them. It's quite a lot of music.
It grew on me. It grew on me because it goes from like this classical Baroque, soundtrack, which is again the establishment, the tradition, the history, everything that she's fighting against, and then her own mental state. We get into the kind of rink rink and all that kind of stuff, all those again discordant sounds. I love the music because it again made me feel like I was in there with her. I was in the weeds with her, kind of trying to deal with this. But yeah, I can get why you hated it though. I can understand it, because I was like, fucking hell.
It's just a bit too much for me. I get like a bit of a auditory overload at times. The radio will go on and I can't think of anything else. I'm like, you need to turn it down. Or like the TV will come on. I'm like, you need to turn it down. So like when that music comes on, I'm just like,
yeah, fair enough.
It's because Megan wasn't a big fan of The Favourite. But did
I did to begin with, and then it got too weird for me.
It did get weird. It does get very weird.
But I think for Megan, without spoiling Poor Things, because I do really want to show it to Megan, I think if Megan's in the right mood, she could really enjoy it. But I think Poor Things has the opposite problem to The Favourite, which I think the first half an hour or so, it's so weird, and you're like, what the fuck is going on? I don't understand. And then something happens and something clicks, and then from a point everything just makes sense, and it's a lot more of like a normal narrative, I say. But The Favourite is the opposite. The first hour you're like, oh, this is kind of like a period piece, and then it just goes off the rails, whereas I think Poor Thing starts off chaotic and it becomes more linear as it goes on, whereas this is kind of in every
Spencer, there's like little dollops of it, there's like sprinklings of weird.
But we got it because like when we were watching it, we both kind of tuned in, I think, where when weird stuff started to happen. I think the scene where she eats the pearls, they fall into.
I love that.
When that happened,
I hated that.
I knew you hated that, but like when that happened,
I think I said out loud, I hate this.
Yeah, but I think then for both of us, it really clicked because we were like, okay, this isn't a biopic showing Diana.
Yes.
This is what it's doing. This is showing what Diana was going through from her perspective. At least an interpretation of her perspective. And the genius way it did that is in two parts. The one part was when she does that and then immediately cuts and she's wearing the pearls. But the thing I found the most obvious of that, and the scene that I really liked the most, was when she goes out to see the paparazzi, and it's the wall of men, specifically white men, there's about 30 of them, I think, all cameras, and they're blocking her entire view, and she's like reeling away from it. And then once it kind of finishes her scene there, the next thing you see is a camera, which is a recording on TV of what she's actually doing there. And you actually see that there's nowhere near that many photographers. They're not being that aggressive. There's not a giant wall of like 6 people high taking photos. It's just, well, I'd say just, it's like a row of them.
Did I fall asleep? I don't remember this scene.
No, it was... There's a bit.
They go to church on Christmas Day for like a hymn.
She walks out and she's like, she's doing that. And there's lots of flashes, and then you see it on the camera.
She's got the red Chanel dress on, the hat.
When that happened, and that happened, I was like, as soon as that happened, I was like, I get it. I was like, this makes sense. As soon as you realize all the weird dissonant music and the crazy stuff that's happening, and this doesn't necessarily make sense, and why is this doing this? Why is this character not saying much, etc. Once you realize it's not a biopic, it is interpretation of 3 days of Diana's life, where before this thing she was one state, and after that it seems to be the journey of her separating from Charles in this very peculiar way. And like I did some research, and a lot of the odd things like the weighing tradition, that did happen. And there's and the like
that's
wearing
fucking nuts, isn't it?
It's crazy, and wearing like the pearls.
But you can see why that would upset her though as well, because
I think
she's
almost
bulimic.
I'm fine with my weight.
Like,
I genuinely would not be happy with someone else saying,
but
I want to weigh you.
Well, it's also the fact that it's a different person. So like she said, like every year her and the other person have a deal that she doesn't weigh herself, and then you've got this new person that's enforcing the rules.
Timothy Spall, well, he was in Harry Potter as well, wasn't he?
Megan didn't recognise him. I was like, do you recognise him? She was like, what do you mean? I was like,
Peter Pettigrew. Peter Pettigrew.
I'm sure Timothy's...
He's a wet man.
It's funny that so many like brilliant, almost Shakespearean actors in Britain are now known primarily by our generation because of them being in Harry Potter. Like the amount of famous people, and we're like... Oh yeah, Dame Maggie Smith, Harry Potter. You know, Michael Gambon, Harry Potter. You know, it's
Kenneth
like
Branagh,
Kenneth
Tennant.
Branagh, Robbie Coltrane. All of them. Like there's so many.
The one that plays
Megan, Professor Sprout. You gonna say?
No, actually, I wasn't.
I was gonna
Professor Trelawney.
I was gonna say Margulis. Trelawney. Is that Emma Thompson?
Yeah.
Yeah. But they're like all these brilliant actors, and we're like, yeah, we know you can be the silly little character in Harry Potter.
That's the one thing I appreciate about the Harry Potter films is it's just like a wall to wall of just brilliant actors from England.
All the actors.
Robert Pattinson again.
Yeah. Yes. There he is. It's all connected. Guys. We're getting it together. I did want to talk about Timothy Spall because he was an interesting character because he is like. Again, you think in this film as well that you're going to spend a lot of time with the royals, with the Queen, with Philip, with Charles, with whoever. But really, it's not about that. But it's all about their relationship, but it's also not with them. It's all about the kind of emotional distance, physical distance. And Spall kind of is the writer, Steve Knight, described this film as a prison break movie. And I see Timothy Spall as the warden. Like, he's here to keep her in line, to break her will, to stop her from doing anything outside of the tradition and what is said and what is done and what is proper. And yeah, he's a really interesting character, and and he keeps coming to her and he tries different methods and different ways of treating her and trying to get her to act right, in his opinion. And I think her rebelliousness was in real life, where she chose her own outfits. She went, I'm going to wear black at this event because it's contrasting the event that I'm going to. So in this event, it's a wedding, so I'm wear black or some, I don't know, whatever the event was, she would try and have some rebellious element to it. And that was the one thing she kind of had some control over in her life. And I think that's why we see that, and we see we see her through her outfits, and and Chanel as well. Again, I'm not a fashionista, but I've done some research. Chanel, actually, they took some of the outfits. They were able to give some of the outfits to the production. They even remade the wedding dress, the original wedding dress from the archives. They pulled the designs or what have you and remade it. And it took them hours and hours. And it's literally like 2-second shot. It's like it's barely in it, but they took hours to remake that. And again, it doesn't really look like the one she technically wore, but it kind of doesn't matter. But that, I do like that kind of sequence, and kind of her running as a child, and then her kind of running towards her future, and then kind of running away from her future or present as well. I thought that was really, really interesting. But yeah, it's an interesting idea that she is trying to get away, and she wants to get away the whole weekend. She doesn't want to be there. She wants to take the kids and go. And that kind of leads to that final kind of that scene where she kind of stands up and says, right, I'm going. This is it. We're done. We did what you wanted for the most part. It's been difficult. It's been hard. It's been heartbreaking, but we're here. I want to take the kids and I want to go. I want to go.
I liked Timothy Small. I liked him in this. Spall, sorry. Yeah. I like Timothy Spall in this. He was very cool in the sense of the way he played it. And he didn't come across like he was soulless or anything. There were points where he was trying to get on her level, but then there were points where she pushed his buttons a certain way and he was like, okay, I'm done with this conversation. Yeah. And it showed him to be human, and he was trying to kind of help, but there was that, I quite like the bit at the end where someone said to him, oh, she's like running off, whatever. And he's like, just let her be. And it's one of those things, I think, what he realizes is something that the royals will never fully realize or address because they don't want to, which is you can have Diana being a poster child for the royals. You just can't have her being the poster child for the royals 100% of her life like the rest of you.
All the time.
She needs a break from the royal life, like almost anyone does.
Yeah, a bit of give and take.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I liked him. I feel like he kind of came to that realization, and the fact that the royals didn't. I don't know, did you like Timothy Spall at all? The waiter guy? Major Gregory, I think his name was.
Yeah, he was fine. He was all right.
Cool. I'm joking.
Did you think he was? Do you think he like? Do you think his role in it was interesting? His effect on Diana and him?
Do you think he gave her the book?
What?
Do you remember the Anne Boleyn book? He put it away at the end when it was like kind of left Anne.
I thought he just put it away.
Oh, I thought it was indicating.
I was going to ask you about this actually, because she implies that it's there as a warning, the Anne Boleyn book, because she finds it on her bed and she's like, "You put it there." But then I also think, did he put it there for her to find herself, to liberate herself? That's
how I viewed it.
Yeah, because
I thought that.
I think you could read it in both ways. Because again, like him talking about being in Ireland and having his mate get shot next to him, he didn't have to tell her that. He didn't have to.
Yeah, that was quite brutal.
Like, that's kind of harrowing. He didn't have to make himself vulnerable in that way to her. And he's like, and he obviously is implying that she's the wild horse that they can't tame, and she takes that as offensive, and she says, I hope that horse never was tamed, because it's describing itself. So it's a really interesting idea, but yeah, I'm not quite sure where I land on it. What did you? Oh, sorry, Megan, go ahead.
No, it's just I think sometimes with these kinds of films, they're just too smart for me. I feel like there's so many films that are like this kind of genre where there's like loads of hidden meanings to stuff. I find it difficult to read between the lines. I was never good at like analyzing poetry at school and stuff like that, so it's kind of the same vibe, really. Like it's sometimes people talk about stuff and they're like, oh, this is how I thought of this, and I'm just like, how the fuck did you get to that conclusion? I was just like, I just saw a pear roll across the road.
You clearly don't listen to Tony Farina's podcast very much, because he's the king of the stretch. He's like
the reach.
Yeah, he was like, oh, that tie they wore, yeah, the red polka dots. Well, did you know that the red polka dot was actually in this thing and this thing and this thing? And he goes, and you're like, well, okay, I think it was they just wore that at that time.
I do get to the point, even with Tony, I go, Yeah, could be.
It's art.
If you want,
yeah,
it
it definitely could be.
You know, you can read a lot of things. You can read so much into the Twilight films. You can read so much into Harry Potter.
Megan's read both of those book series as well.
Yeah.
She's the expert, not
Yeah.
the. She knows everything. No,
I don't.
But even though with this film though, you say when we were watching it though, you did say you enjoyed it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, but like
I
surprises me.
find it difficult to analyze movies. I find it difficult to analyze things in general. So
if you like, what if you watched a film, but going into that film, you say, I'm going to watch it in a feminist lens. I'm going to think about feminism while I watch this movie. Do you think that would affect how you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, I'm doing that at work at the moment because I've got a trainee teacher.
Okay.
So when I observe her lessons, I have to focus on specifics.
Yeah,
I think when I'm watching something as a whole, it's like if I were watching a film and I was specifically focusing on the score, then yes, I would understand and I would remember the score. But there's so many films that we're talking
that you
about
watch,
them.
yeah.
And then people are like, "Oh yeah, the
Mike
score
forces
is
you to watch."
fantastic," and I'm just like, I don't fucking remember a single
You're
piece
much
of
better
music.
at a rewatch though, aren't you?
I am better. I'm not very good at remembering things first time round. And
Yeah.
You're a vibe person.
I miss a lot of things.
That was the epiphany.
I was going to say this.
I'm a vibe person.
This film is all vibe. I think it's very vibey. It's more.
I enjoyed the film, but I think like analyzing the individual characters, I think is difficult for me. The whatever he is, butler guy, what is he? House person.
Timothy Spall.
Yeah,
that
what about
man.
the guy?
Like
the Sergeant General or whatever his name was. Yeah,
it's a weird one because sometimes like I feel like you see it from Diana's side and like you're kind of like on her side, but then there's certain comments in the movie that like I don't know if she's made up or it's in her head, but sure. Maggie, I think her name is.
Yeah.
Because then she makes comments about like how he's not all bad in reference to Charles. So it like it's really difficult to gauge with this film because I feel like sometimes you see it from like Diana's side as everyone's out to get her, but then you see it in a different lens and it's like, oh, actually he is trying to be helpful, and you kind of see that with every single character in the palace.
Yes,
I agree, and I think that really is encapsulated when she interrupts the pheasant shooting, and I think that shows where when you see everything from her perspective, she's been quite reasonable, but when you actually see some of the grand gestures that she did because of her state of mind at the time and because of feeling trapped and because of thinking she has no other option, she would do something, and without the rest of the context of what she was struggling with, you're like...
She lashes out and it comes across as like bratty a lot of the time.
Yeah, sometimes.
But obviously there are reasons for the brattiness, but they're like, it's...
Do you think this film was intentionally doing that though, trying to balance...
Yeah, I think what I quite like about this film is that it's not just portraying Diana to be a martyr. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
She had flaws. Like, as you said earlier, like it's not a case of making her seem like a heroine or whatever the phrasing was that you said, a saint. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So, like, I feel like it puts her up on the pedestal, but then it also knocks her back down again. So that it shows that she is just... I think the point of this is to make it relatable, right? Yeah. Like, ultimately, we're not people that can understand her position because none of us are going to be part of the royal family, so we can't understand that pressure. But then it kind of makes it relatable, and it's like, well, even the like richy rich of the people have their issues too.
Yeah.
But
Megan thinks she can't analyse films.
Look at that. See?
I think it's when I go
talking shit, Megan. Talking absolute shit about yourself, not about the film. Talking absolute shit about yourself.
When I go off on a tangent, I can find a point. I find it difficult.
That's why I get you an after.
There you go.
I find it difficult when people ask me direct questions about stuff.
Sometimes you need a...
I feel like a deer in the headlights. Yeah.
I should be like Charles in that snooker scene. Just come at you sideways.
The thing is, it's hard because I never want to put you on the spot, but sometimes if you aren't prompted, you won't.
I'll just sit here.
And I often... The thing is, when in some of these conversations, I do it in Disney discussions, I've noticed a little bit, which is, it feels like sometimes I'm putting Megan on the spot, but what's actually happened is we've spoken while watching the film, she's made a comment that I've thought's insightful, and I'm trying to get her to remember that without saying, you remember when you said this thing? And most of the time I can get you to say it, and then you go off and you say something really insightful and cool. But sometimes you're like, I don't know what you're asking me to say. And I'm like, you literally, you said this thing. And she's like, I don't remember saying that. It's like, you made me consider this whole scene in a different way, and you don't even remember saying it. Yeah. So that's why sometimes I
think it's you say it, and she goes, oh yeah, I did say that. That's what you'd start mentioning it, and you went, wait a minute, it was me who said it. Yeah, it was. I was just trying to get you to, like, kind of motivates it to say, all right, shut up, Mike. That was all me. That was my idea. So again, the Sally Hawkins character I think is great. But yeah, Maggie, and then you've got Darren the chef as well.
I have thoughts
the
about
tall,
that.
skinny guy.
Yeah, that's right.
I have thoughts on that.
Go on, you go then, Mike.
So I was trying to work out while watching this film. I was trying to think of like what the food part was. And I think there's obviously the connection to the eating disorder, the bulimia and things.
Sure.
But what I think it was trying to show is kind of like the way the royals live is essentially in a bubble with no chaos. And essentially every single one around them is under intense pressure and scrutiny and has to have everything perfect. And all these weird rules that he's having to keep reinforcing. He's like, don't forget to do this thing. And we have to do this at this time and feed this person first and then do that. And it's
remember,
like,
they can hear us.
Exactly. And it's like, this is not a normal place to be a chef at all, which is why he's like a specialist. And with
working in a kitchen, being a chef in general is a really weird environment. Let alone being in that environment.
But in the royal, like that's probably one of the most prestigious or one of the most highly scrutinized workforces there is being a royal chef.
They really highlight that because it's brought in by the military. The food is brought in massive, proper like weapon crates.
Yeah, to make sure it's not been poisoned or tampered with.
And again, which makes sense. But then that reflects on the chefs and how they prepare the food, how they serve it, what they say, and how regimented they are. But he still, throws in a little bit of Shakespeare, a little bit of, some poetry in there. So
it does have some like good dialogue, but I think that for me, the way I perceived the food stuff was kind of trying to show Diana's right in the middle of, let's call it reality or normality, and the insane life that the royals live. And it's clear that the royals, like the more we've looked into it, we're like, no one would, I think, even want to be a royal. The crown indicates that some of the opinions
even the people that are next in line don't want to be next in line.
Exactly, because a lot of them are like, I can't do what I want, I can't live my own life. In Harry's book, he talks about it a lot, where him and William had some very candid conversations about things they can and cannot do. William couldn't wear the suit he wanted for his own wedding because of a specific royal tradition thing, and then Harry forced him to wear whatever he wanted, and then William got jealous of Harry being able to kind of wear what he wanted on his wedding. So there's things like that are threaded in like a lot of royal tradition, and I think that the show is Diana is actually treading both. She's not born into it, which just kind of makes you desensitized to it, and she doesn't actually want the royal life necessarily. She want the fairy tale life of someone loving her and caring for her, but she didn't necessarily want the royal life. And so she's kind of in the middle of the kitchen and the main room. And she can't deal with that. The chaos of where the cooks are and the calm of where they're eating it. And she's torn between the two. And I think for me, I was perceiving that as that's what her struggle is really showing, is she's simultaneously the chaos and the calm. But you see what the royals do. They don't even choose their own outfits. So they just have to basically turn their brain off for most of the day and just kind of follow a routine. And that's a lot of what The Crown was. And the first couple of seasons of The Crown, when it shows what Margaret was doing, huge parallels to Diana, huge parallels, like of like everything she wanted to do but couldn't, and what it drove her to, which is excessive smoking and drinking, and unfortunately an early death. And it's like that is shown.
I think Margaret died early.
We're not early. I mean, she had the bath.
She had problems. She had
a fuck ton of strokes.
Yeah, but you think about how old when the royals often live, like the Queen and Philip and the Queen Mother, they all lived for ages. I mean, the Queen Mother outlived Margaret, didn't she? She died like 3 days later.
Yeah.
And she's her mum, who's like 20, 30 years older than her. So it's like Margaret, in terms of royals, at least modern royals, she died she wasn't like young or anything, but she didn't die just of, air quotes, old age. A lot of it was attributed to the smoking and the lack of self-care.
She died at 71.
Okay, that's older than I thought. But she did decline quite quickly. And I think that her life, a lot of people said she wasn't necessarily that happy in a lot of respects. And I think that with Diana, that was very similar.
Yeah, I guess the mental health aspect of it. I think personality-wise and what they did for society is not.
Oh no, yeah, I think the way they were attacked,
for the way that they were treated by the royal family itself, I can.
They were just pushed to a distance at arm's length and say, "Look, we're all dealing with it. Why can't you?" And it's like that's not how it works. That's not how life works. It's like everyone else.
I guess the difference between, and not that it's justified, but the difference is that Margaret was born into the family, whereas Diana was brought in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. She had some form of a somewhat normal life. I mean, she was still like her dad was still like an earl, I think, or a duke or something like that.
Yeah, she had money, but I think she was more like middle class.
She didn't have a happy childhood either. Like her dad was abusive to her mum, and she left, I think. And yeah, there was a lot of stuff going on, but even before she got to all the royals and stuff.
So that's a big tangent. What did you think of the food?
I mean, you could say Diana is one of these wonderful meals, and the royals are just kind of, a souffle, just devouring her. I was going to bring up the I want to go back to William and Harry in a bit, but I want to bring up the pearls again. Megan, not a fashionista myself, but do you know what's wrong with that when they break?
Pearls can't. The pearls wouldn't break, I guess.
So they can break.
Yeah, the pearls can break.
I'm gonna upset a lot of Batman fans here as well, because there's a famous pearl necklace.
Oh, they don't bounce.
Well, so what it is each pearl, there's a knot in between, so the pearls don't rub on each other and they lose their kind of luster. So if you did break them, only one would fall out, because the others are knotted. So when Martha Wayne is killed in the alley, by the gunman in almost every Batman interpretation, it's the pearl necklace breaks, goes everywhere. That wouldn't happen. Fake news, rubbish.
Interesting.
So there you go. So yeah, you would lose maybe one pearl at most.
Well, I think in the DC universe, actually, they just never learned that knotting technique.
There you go. All right, fair enough. You've explained it.
Yeah.
My friend was like, he called Captain America the First Avenger bullshit, because he was like, they didn't discover DNA at that point, so they couldn't create the super soldier. And I went, this is a different universe. Maybe they discovered DNA a bit early. And he was like, oh, yeah, fair enough.
Multiverse wins again.
Shut him up. But yeah, I want to go back to William and Harry. There's that scene in the bedroom where they're...
The soldier one.
Yes, I want to talk about it. Do you want to go? You want to talk about this?
I enjoyed that scene. I thought it was interesting that they were making it be a case of being truthful through a game, because it seems that they're not allowed to be truthful. They have to kind of keep up they have to hide away what they're feeling.
Keep up appearances.
So I found that scene interesting. I enjoyed it.
So that scene was almost entirely improvised as well.
Wow.
So the kids were just, playing the game and doing it. And you can kind of tell a little bit that it's a little improvised. It's a little kind of rough around the edges, but in a nice way, in a fun way, in a playful way.
I just felt that as the kids being kids, to be honest.
The line where you were talking about this, Mike, and this is why I wanted to bring this up, was the line where William says, oh, do you want to, they ask him, Soldier William, do you want to be king? And he goes, I don't have a choice. That was completely improvised by that kid. That came out of nowhere.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
He made that decision within the scene, and they kept it. They were like, the writer of the film, do you mind if we just keep this line in? It was pretty fucking good. You didn't fucking write, some kid did. So they were like, yeah, it's great. And that was what kind of interesting as well. And I love that also for the big rooms, because again, all of this is about kind of the isolation of Diana and her feeling like she doesn't have any friends. That's why she goes to Maggie and she goes to Darren, because she needs friends. She needs someone to talk to. And even though these people, they have to keep a distance because of, impropriety, she goes to them and has to talk to them and asks for Maggie to come back. But when she goes into these big rooms, they emptied these big rooms when she's on her own or with very few people, out of all the chairs and everything and all the trappings, to make it feel that more kind of empty, but yet also kind of closing in on her, claustrophobic as well. And then the personal spaces, like her room and the kids' room, is very cramped. There's a lot of stuff in there and it's all very close, which again, some wonderful contrasting in this film with stuff like that. And yeah, again, it's wonderful. It was shot on 16mm as well, unusually, which kind of gives it that olden day, timey kind of look. And sometimes they would film with this old camera, and there's a term where they call it, there's hair in the gate, which is basically means bits of the film grain have come off and they've come into the kind of the lens, and it's caught on camera. And that
happens quite a lot. Tarantino loves that, doesn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. So that, the proper old camera, old school, and that's why it's kind of got that kind of old timey kind of feel. But there was times where they would film, they go, oh shit, there's fucking there's hair in the gate, so we're gonna have to film the whole thing again. We got edit around it.
Christ.
So they do it again. And I think it was 36mm. The cinematographer, I can't remember her name, but I'll look it up in a second. And they decided to use that for the night scenes because it's not quite as grainy and not as quite as granular, and it's a little bit softer and a little bit more kind of open as well. But again, I think everybody is like absolutely at the top of the game: production design, cinematography. What did you think about her and the Scarecrow and going home? That kind of idea and her trying desperately to kind of go home and back to her roots.
I found that stuff a bit weird. The stuff with the scarecrow.
Unhinged.
It's very unhinged. So, yeah, when she was running, she like snapped Scarecrow's arm off to take the coat. I was like, "You're absolutely savage." I was like, "It's also not." Well, I mean, it kind of is her family.
I felt bad for the farmer though,
but it's not her land. So
Yeah.
I'm just like, you're just walking over someone's crops.
Yeah, and you're potentially making it so it's a target for crows, which is literally the whole point of a scarecrow, is to stop that happening. So you're actually kind of hurting someone's livelihood. And I think, obviously, the scene likely didn't actually occur, but it's one of those where I think what I've written down is, one of my notes is, many threads are stemmed from real events and comments, but are tweaked. Like, for example, there's no actual pearl necklace. It was that Charles bought a very similar piece of jewelry for both Camilla and Diana, but I don't think it was a pearl necklace. But I think
that has its own metaphors and allegories. A pearl necklace, of course.
Yes,
as well.
yes, it does. But I think that her doing that is kind of, again, her showing like she grasps at like the real world in a way, like any way to connect with her life outside of the royal life. I think that's kind of what the point of that was. But yeah, I'm not that element. I wasn't as fussed on. I think that and the Anne Boleyn stuff, I did get the Anne Boleyn stuff, but I was like, I felt like it was a bit too heavy-handed.
Yeah,
I was like, I kind of making her not jump down the stairs almost be like, don't give him the satisfaction. I feel like that kind of thing would have worked, but I was like, okay, the Anne Boleyn stuff's coming on quite hard, and I think it takes away a little bit.
Yeah, I think it is very kind of almost quite ham-fisted. I think that particular kind of parallel between the two. It didn't bother me that much, but I can see why it would bother others watching it. I think, again, we already know she's going through it and having a kind of awful time. I think the Scarecrow is kind of representation of her father. I'm not sure if he was dead at this point, or who knows what.
Because I didn't know
it would
anything
suggest that he probably was
dead, but yeah,
because...
I'm not sure when he died.
Because I don't know anything about.
Again, a lot of this stuff is all kind of hodgepodge, and there's a different timeline. Like a lot of the people got really on their high horse about this, a lot like Diana fans and hardcore royalists and stuff. They were like, this never happened here, this happened here, and she never did this, and that never happened, and the divorce happened here. And he was like, the director was like, yeah, no, I know. It's not the point. We're not doing the most accurate biopic. We're not doing, it's the same for me. I'm not one of these people who needs historical accuracy. As long as it's entertaining and engaging, the story has me and the character.
I think it depends how it's advertised, because Bohemian Rhapsody was advertised to be the story of Freddie Mercury, and then it's almost all complete bullshit.
It's all bullshit, yeah.
It's like, which really upset me, whereas Rocket Man...
Well, Elton John was a producer.
Yeah, and like a huge amount of that is like, you watch Rocket Man and you're like, yeah, most of this, apart from the odd drug scene and whatever, it's like, this pretty much happened. But Bohemian Rhapsody was like, yeah, the band didn't meet this way. Freddie wasn't like that at the start of the band. They literally changed the whole timeline of him getting HIV and the Band-Aid stuff. And you're like, why? If you're literally not even really doing the story now, like... Whereas I don't mind some inaccuracies because it makes me look stuff up. But when I'm like, oh, all of this is made up, I'm like,
yeah. If you're selling it as the true story, and it's not. And I think that's my problem with biopics: is how do you sum up an entire life, someone's entire personality, in an hour and a half or 2 hours, 3 hours film? It's not possible. Even here, we still don't really know who a Diana is. We can identify, we can empathize, but we don't really know who she was. And even after watching 2 documentaries, you guys have watched The Crown, we still don't really know who she was. We know facts and figures, but we don't really truly fully comprehensively understand it. And that's what the cinematographer said, and Pablo Larrain. He said, I think the biopic is a fallacy. I don't think it's something you can do. You can't produce an accurate biopic of anybody, so why try? And that's why they go this route. This is why they go, we're just going to boil it down, try and boil everything down, take everything we know, but kind of also forget it at the same time, and tell this story as best as we can, and how we perceive Diana to be, who we think she is, as best we can, with what we know and what the story we want to tell. And I think that's the best way to go about it, personally, for me. And I think that's what makes this film far more interesting for me. I know loads of people have complained about Gladiator 2 not being historically accurate, and I was like, the first one wasn't historically accurate, you fucking dickheads.
I mean, yeah, I can't remember many things about the first Gladiator, even though we watched it like this year.
Yeah.
But I was like, Was it this year or last year? We didn't do an afterthoughts on it because
I watched the first one this year. But
we watched
never
it.
saw it.
We watched it. No, because we did. It's on the 100 film list, and we scratched it off. It was like 3 hours long. Do you remember? We had to watch it in like 2 parts.
Evidently not. I don't know why you're
Did you fall asleep?
No, but I can. In honesty, I can barely remember. I think we had
Love me a little nap.
I think we did it in a period of time we were off for a lot of time, and then we just had a day. Well, let's have a few drinks, and I think we were just quite hazy by the end of it because it's such a long film. The thing is, I like about this is that it doesn't feel like it's trying to be a biopic. I think quite early on, where it specifically does stuff which is like showing you this clearly didn't happen. You know, the eating the pearls thing, and then that, like when that because of that, I think I can be like, oh, this is interpretation. So I'm fine with that. I like biopics if they're done well, and I think that if you have the person the biopic's about involved, if you have it so long ago that it's kind of like
yawning on cue.
Yeah.
Well, I was trying to be quiet.
It was quite loud. It's fine.
It's not. It's not that it was quiet. I thought it was funny because you were talking about you having a nap, and then you're like, "Ooh,
sorry, I've derailed it because I had
it's all good. I think with the biopics is that when it's like quite old, like really far back, I'm fine because you're like, no one is alive to tell you that this thing that happened in the 1700s did or didn't happen. So I'm fine with it being these events definitely happened. The conversations in between we aren't 100% certain on. The Crown is kind of like that in certain respects, and I'm fine with those. But I think the biopic is complicated because you want it to be entertaining, but I feel like you do kind of have to be a degree of accurate. But I'm one of the people that as soon as I see a biopic, first thing I do is then just Google what are the inaccuracies.
Bob Dylan one coming out, isn't there, with Timothy Chalamet?
Oh, was that what that film was about?
Yeah. But people are already making fun of it because we covered on this podcast Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story, which is
I've not seen that, but
the parody and piss take of music biopics. Like, they go into
Spinal Tap kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. They go into the audition booth, they're doing shit, and then someone says, "Play a song that represents you," and they're immediately amazing, and then all of a sudden, like they're up in like Bohemian Rhapsody or something.
Well, I was going to say in the film Bohemian Rhapsody, they fight the record label. I was like, no, they didn't. They literally played it. They're like, this is going to be great, and then they played it everywhere, and they won. And it was like there's not even any remote friction there.
It's the same, and it's making fun of Ray and Walk the Line at the time, which are fine as they are, but again, they're very kind of idealized versions of these people. And you've also got the Pharrell Williams one, the Lego one's coming out soon, or it's already come out. He's done
Lego Pharrell Williams.
Yeah, so there's a biopic coming out that's produced and voiced by Pharrell Williams, and it's all done like a Lego movie.
Oh God, I know there's the Robbie Williams one coming out.
And that's what I was going to mention as well. The Better Man, and again, this is gonna because they're involved. I'm going to be like, right, you're going to make yourselves out to be kind of saints when you're really not.
Well, it's like Straight Outta Compton. They just didn't go into any of the stuff with Dre abusing his girlfriend, and it's because Dre was involved. And I'm like, it's quite a major point of what was going on with
I guess with a biopic, it depends on the morality of the person who's.
Well, they cancelled the Hulk Hogan one with Chris Hemsworth because he just came out as like a MAGA supporter and stuff, and they were like, nobody wants to hear that story about the racist guy, the racist wrestler.
I just think that Hollywood always learns the wrong lessons where it goes, oh, there's a couple of films in this genre that's doing well, let's do 1 million of them. And I know that's capitalism in a lot of ways.
You are going to get a lot of 2-part musical movies, Mike, because Wiki's
2-part movies.
Wiki's doing very well.
There's so many like Instagram reels at the moment that I'm seeing of like people being like me sitting quietly actually being a fan of Wicked since I was like 12 years old versus all of the people that are only just realizing that the musical is fantastic.
I'm one of those people.
Even I liked it.
Well,
I haven't seen it yet
because we've seen the actual performance.
I listen to musical theatre in my car because that's who I am. Yeah. And they have now stopped. I've noticed in the musical theatre playlists, it's not Wicked the stage production, it is Wicked the movie.
They're doing the thing with the books, like the books. They put the movie poster on the book. I don't like that.
It's like, no, I don't want to hear Ariana Grande. I want to hear Kristen Chenoweth.
I will say they are good. They are very good.
No. I've heard good things.
They are very good. I think all the voices and everything, the songs are very good. Some of the actors can't sing, but they're auto-tuned enough. Where
that's standard, isn't it? I mean,
there's always going to be a Russell Crowe in a bunch of
and a Pierce Brosnan.
Right. Pierce Brosnan, don't even include him because most of the men in that film are shit at singing.
Yeah.
But that's the funny thing when Stellan Skarsgård was asked
Colin
about
Firth.
it. I watched the Stellan Skarsgård thing where he was like, he got asked to Mamma Mia, and he was like, me? But I can't sing. Why would you ask me? And they're like, oh, we've got... And he was like, I don't think I can do this because, I'm not sure. I can't sing. And there's like, and then I saw Colin Firth was in it. And then I also saw Pierce Brosnan. I was like, those guys can't sing. I'll do it. And it's just like, I love Stellan. Any interviews with him, he's so funny. But that was, it's very dry sense of humor. But when I heard that, I was like, that's quite good. That's quite funny. But I think movie versions of musicals, they don't often land. I think Wicked might be the first one in a long while.
Hairspray.
Yeah, in a long while. Hairspray was made like over 10 years ago. And also that's a remake of another film because John Waters actually was the first one to make the film.
I have seen the original.
It was like Star Wars Born. They're like, let's make 4 of them. And you're like, fuck. I've seen the newest one. It's pretty good. But I'm like, because
how many stars get born? Like, so many. 4 stars. Oh, dear. I know what you mean. Like, I'm very like choose. For me, it's got to be about if the story's good, I'm in because I know the songs will be good, but they won't carry it for me. The story has to be.
That's what I always say. I say musicals. The problem is the songs come first and the story second.
Yes,
and that's fine if you love the songs.
Yeah, and if you can tell the story through the song, again, that's the point. But also the stuff in between needs to be good as well. Like you need that. I remember seeing the Battle of Hell musical, which I enjoyed. Yeah. But again, it's like we're set in the future and we're immortal youngsters who never die. All right, what's that got to do with Dashboard Confessional? Like, what's that got to do with anything? I like the songs are amazing, the musical elements of it, but the story, I was like, this is just Romeo and Juliet garbage.
That's how I feel about We Will Rock You as well.
Yes.
I like the musical. I like the songs. I love Queen, but I thought the musical itself is a bit
controversial. That's kind of similar, isn't it? It's like in the future. And
it's in the future, and it's like music. Yeah. It's essentially Footloose. Music's banned.
I wouldn't have made that comparison, but yeah, there you go. Yeah, absolutely.
Music's been banned. It doesn't exist anymore. We're trying to bring it back.
Boo. Get back. Yeah, brilliant. Right,
Spencer. Yeah, Spencer.
Yes, going back to Spencer with all the. Actually, speaking of music, I do have a playlist, Spotify playlist. Megan, speaking of that, so I've got the montage that Kristen and Stewart does in the film with all the different outfits, all the various outfits, the wedding dress. Again, the yellow pirate outfit, my favorite. Apparently, that was like based. There was another hat they based it on, but they were like, "No, we're going to do a pirate hat." But I've got a playlist here. Would you like to hear some of the choices that these were played while she was kind of doing a thing during those sequences when she's outside the estate center?
In a vibe check, okay.
Yeah. So they had a Perfect Day, which was included in
the Lou Reed song. I can't think of any. Train Spotting is all I think of when I hear that song. The overdosing scene.
There's All Apologies, which is a Sinead O'Connor cover of Nirvana. I've Got You Under My Skin by Frank Sinatra, which is the song that Stewart couldn't keep a straight face through. And what else we got? Once in a Lifetime by Talking Heads. Home by LCD Sound System, who Stewart calls the best fuck song of all time, or best fucking song of all time. Not sure.
I hope it's best fucking song. I hate
fuck song.
They're two very different sentences.
Knowing what Kristen Stewart's like, I think she probably means
best fuck
it just
song.
It just says F, and then there's like a hyphen there, so I'm assuming it's fuck in some form, in some capacity. We'll Meet Again by Vera Lynn, which is again heard at the end of Kubrick's Doctor Strangelove. There's a few others. I'll include it if people want.
Isn't that song a war song? We'll Meet Again.
Yeah, so it's Vera Lynn. I did a World War II play. Kind of partly wrote it years ago when I was at college, and we had Vera Lynn in it because she sings that song, and it was all about during the war and everything.
We
we'll meet again. Don't know when.
I think I did a production or something.
Did Dan write it?
It's not a secret.
You actually knew each other before me.
I'm your Charles now, Mike.
Yeah, I know that song because we did some sort of war thing when I was at schools, and we had to sing that song. I don't know. Yeah.
There's a few others on there, but I don't really know them very well. Some more classical stuff and other things, but yeah, that's the ones that. So when you see her running through the wedding dress, and again, yellow pirate, kind of SpongeBob-y, I guess a little bit. SpongeBob outfit. But is there anything else we want to talk about? Do we want to talk about the Queen? Do we want to talk Maggie? Do we want to talk about that snooker scene with Charles? Anything you want to talk about?
Snooker scene, I'm not fussed by. I will say with the One thing I don't want to mention Maggie, but I want to say that a line I quite like, which is when she's talking with Maggie, is she says, you don't wear black as no one has died. And then there's another mention a bit later where she says she's gone, and Maggie's like, where? What do you mean? And she's like, kind of half gone. Gone where? And she can't really answer. And I quite like that this film was kind of showing like she kind of got to an impasse, and either she was going to go down and essentially in Equus, like go die in Equus while wearing the black, or she's going to pull herself out of it and get away from there. And that's what she did, and that's how she, in air quotes, kind of survived. So I liked that element. I liked Maggie as a character, but I don't really understand why she had to fall in love with Diana. I felt like that didn't add anything. I was like, especially when I looked it up, and I was like, yeah, this isn't based on anyone in particular. It's just that Diana's really nice.
Apparently there was someone, and they didn't want to be named, but I don't know if they were in love with Diana or if they were close or what have you. But like Darren was a real person as well.
Right. I just didn't feel like it had her being in love with Diana. I feel like that actually kind of took away a bit, because I always find what frustrates me is when you get someone who's just really close to someone and does a lot of nice things for them, they don't go, I just did this because I really platonically care about you. I find it cheapens if you go, I was actually in love with you, so even if I'm trying to be selfless, I am selfishly kind of hoping you fall in love with me as well, even though I don't think you're going to, and then that's not.
I don't think it's that. I think the point of it is to show Diana that there are people that care about her, because at the moment it feels like no one does.
I just feel like her love would mean more. Yeah, but I feel like her love would mean more if she wasn't confessing she was in love with her. If she was saying like, I love you platonically, like I just want the best for you. I care for you deeply, and I don't have to be in love with you. Like there are people who care about you who don't have to be in love with you. I think that's a stronger message. I don't like films where you can't just have two, especially where it's a male and a female, when they're in a film and they're about the same age, and it's quite rare for them to just be platonic friends, or they're platonic friends and then right near the end, they were more than friends all along. It's like there are existences where there are people who are heterosexual, opposite-gendered people who are both single at the same time, who just genuinely are not into each other, who just genuinely are friends and are just really love each other. Yeah.
Talking about
friends.
My love life, Mike. I'm kidding. No, I agree with you. I think it's almost like, it feels like it was something she could have done something, because she needs to shock her. She needs to shock Diana. To kind of, to make her laugh, and I think there was a better way to do it than I'm gay. It's kind of like there's nothing wrong with that, and admitting your love for someone, of the same sex is fine and stuff. But it felt almost like you could have had something else there, because they kind of play it off almost immediately. They go, yeah, I'm in love with you, by the way. Back to this. It's kind of like it's almost unnecessary. Like, and I know, like, Kristen Stewart is, I believe I want to say she's bi. Yeah.
Well, she cheated on. Didn't she cheat on Robert Pattinson with the director of a movie who was a guy?
The Snow White movie.
And she cheated on him with a girl. I think that's
so.
What happened.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure of her of where she is in her spectrum of sexuality, but I know that she's had multiple partners of different sexes. But yeah, I don't know. It just seemed like it was like a mention and then just thrown away immediately. Like it was almost like we're worried that we're going to imply that Diana was bi or something.
That's what I thought they were doing initially, and I was like, "Are they going to kiss?" I was like, I'm all up for telling a story, but I was like, I think
we can have Amberlingos, but
I think that when you try and
can't have a gay Diana, definitely not having a gay Diana. That would never fly.
If the kind of point of the film was what if Diana was gay, I think that'd be fine. But kind of by that point of the film, me and Megan were like, okay, we can feel this is near the end.
It was in the last half an hour of the movie, last 20 minutes of the film.
If that, it was quite near the end, and I was like, if this is a point where they're now trying to pass, because also I think with Diana in particular, if you try and put her in a queer lens, I feel like that takes away from the sadness she felt because of Charles.
Yeah, exactly.
I think if you were going to argue,
she did love Charles,
100%. And I think if you go, but maybe she was queer, and I go, but
I don't think that's what they're trying to do.
No, I agree with you, but that's why I'm saying I don't know why they.
Yeah, I think she could have made like a rude joke, or I don't know, said drop the
I've seen you naked
or something. Yeah, or
maybe she could just say, I see you.
You got fantastic,
and I like
hits.
If she said, I saw you naked, and made a joke about it, go like, I saw you naked. And actually, I quite liked it a bit. Oh, did that shock you? Like, that would have been,
Or, you downstairs need a trim. It could have literally.
That would have been actually quite good.
Yeah,
that would have been good.
But like that's what I mean, because it's thrown away. It's given to us and thrown away so quickly, and it's just meant to incite her to giggle. Because it could have been like a real, like, genuine moment. Like, I do love you, I do care. But it's almost like because she's kind of laughing nervously about it. It's almost like the gay panic thing, where I was like, I don't know about this. Yeah, I wasn't entirely Sure. I did quite enjoy the scene with the Queen, however brief it was. I like the idea of them talking about being currency in their relationship.
The value.
Yeah, and your value and your transactional. This is a transaction. What we're doing with you, you have value and we will utilize that and we will spend it how we see. And, and you're getting value from us and you're getting, this is a transactional thing. You have your children, we have your children, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I'm glad they didn't spend too much time with the Queen either, because it might have gone either way.
Well, you mentioned the Queen when we were watching it, because we discussed another thing with The Crown. Again, it's not. I think The Crown is such a good show because it doesn't seem pro or anti-royalist. It tries to actually, for the most part, trying to show you the events that happened. But we discussed that with the Queen, like before watching The Crown and knowing more about her, I wouldn't say anti the Queen, but like I didn't get the fuss. And then the more you learn about her and like how much she was about, she was for almost every decision she made.
It was for the country.
It was meant to be for the country. Some of it was misguided. She's human. She makes mistakes.
Sure.
But I think that the Queen in this film was shown to try and be kind of like, she was distant like everyone else was, but she was kind of understanding in a degree. And I think this film was trying to show the Queen isn't the problem. I think that was what it was trying to show. Yeah. And I think that the sheer lack of dialogue.
It's the traditions.
Well, it's Charles and Philip, I think, because Charles has almost no dialogue whatsoever in this whole film. And I think that was very intentional. And I think that's from Diana's perspective. He doesn't say much.
Yeah.
She wants a human connection to talk to people, but they don't, you know what I mean? So,
but it's almost like they're all desperate for that connection, but they can't really have it. Like almost all of them to a degree. Like Charles wants that connection, arguably with Camilla or elsewhere, with his mom or his dad.
In Harry's book, he says, like, one of Harry and William's issues with their father is that he's not affectionate. The royals aren't affectionate. They don't hug. They don't really do a lot of that kind of stuff.
The reason she threw herself down the stairs was she said, Charles, don't leave now. And he left. She threw herself down the stairs. They had Harry. And the second Diana was home, he went off to play polo immediately.
Yeah.
So it's stuff like that, which is very telling.
There's a lot of things he allegedly said, which was allegedly in Harry's book. It was apparently he said, right, I've given you an heir and I've given you a spare and my job is done. And then apparently he basically went off and saw Camilla. And you're like, allegedly he said that, according to Harry.
Heir and a spare, fucking hell.
Well, that's what Harry calls himself, the spare, because people have referred to him as a spare. He's expected to, if he's got non-essential organs, he's expected to give up one of his organs if something happens to the heir. He's expected to do so. That's why he's called the spare. Yeah, the book's really enlightening. It's a really good book. Again, the middle part is all about the army and stuff. It's not even about being a royal necessarily. But
that's interesting, though, isn't it?
I do rate, and him reading it is really good. It's quite funny at points. There's a point where his penis gets frostbite and he makes lots of jokes about it and talks about it quite candidly, and it is genuinely quite funny. Like, it is. And you get to hear about the Queen in a way that you don't normally. And he says the Queen has a wicked sense of humour. And she's really nice.
I bet she's filth.
Well, he says Harry says any photo you see of Harry and the Queen when they're looking at each other and or laughing at each other, near each other, it's always because the Queen stole a joke. Yeah. He's like, she is so funny, but she doesn't get to let her guard down to anyone. But Harry's so silly and brings it out in her.
That's the thing, though. I think they're all of them are looking for that release. Like Diana's got
tightly wound.
Yeah, Diana's got the bulimia and the cutting herself, and then like the Queen's cracking jokes, and Charles is going off and cracking on with Camilla. However you want to playing polo, whatever the fuck he does.
Well, it's their only element of like control, isn't it? Everything else is being controlled for them. So I guess with the like bulimia stuff, doesn't make sense because obviously it's a mental illness.
Yeah, of course.
But it makes sense in the sense that it's the only thing that you have control over at that given time.
Yeah. It's a release, like I was binge drinking at one point, which was definitely not very healthy at all. And I've still got some vices, don't worry. And yeah, so I get it. I understand it. I can see why you would get even, and I've felt pressures from family, from jobs, from, people, from other stuff. I felt that pressure. So I can definitely get on board with the way she's feeling, the way she chooses to, exercise those demons, let's say. So yeah, it's fascinating, a really good film, and I think it's Kristen Stewart's the best performance I've seen of her. I've not seen her. I won't say I've seen her a lot, but I think she captures something here, some magic, and this is kind of a ghost story. I think you hinted that Maggie was almost maybe a ghost or in her imagination potentially as well. You were saying earlier, and it is kind of a haunted house story as well. It's a prison break. It's a psychological, drama. And that fits in right with the Christmas theming of it, because Christmas is kind of fundamentally, we talk about ghost stories, talk about A Christmas Carol is the most famous version, but that was kind of a tradition for quite a long time. I don't think we see it as much anymore, but it was a thing that we
shifted by 2 months in the
Yeah,
month that Caesar installed into the calendar. We just popped it in there.
We were just like, Irish holiday. We'll just chuck it in there. Chuck them in there. This has got to be wholesome about Santa and all that. Did it feel quite Christmassy, this, or did you feel that Christmas vibe at all? Or?
No, because like for me, Christmas is like you spending time with family. Like you are looking forward to Christmas. She's not looking forward to Christmas. This is like literally the worst possible time of the year for her.
Sometimes that is Christmas.
Yeah. But I mean, like from my perspective, it is set at Christmas, but because there's no joy, right? Like Christmas, you think of joy, you think of like
that's meant to be the vibe.
It's meant to be the vibe. Yeah. Like it's Christmas. But for Diana, it's not. Like it's not a happy time.
It's just another day.
Well, I think and even then it's worse, really, because she's trapped there.
I think with Christmas, like Christmas films, I think they define, for me, loosely, is either they take place at Christmas, which obviously this one did, the Santa Claus is involved in some way, or it's got like the family vibe. And that's why Frozen is not a Christmas film. I'm telling everyone that empirically, because it's set in summer.
Yeah, July or something.
Yeah, objectively, it's not. Yeah. But when people say, it's kind of a Christmas film, I think they're confusing it with essentially snow and family
I think
vibe.
It came out. Did it come out around Christmas time?
Well, maybe, but lots of Star Wars films come out at Christmas.
Harry Potter films came out around Christmas, didn't they?
She thinks Harry Potter
they're all on at Christmas. There is a Christmas scene.
I said Philosopher's Stone I could accept could be considered a Christmas film, but I said I refuse to accept it's a Halloween film, which is what Megan was. Megan, when it was a spooky season, she was like, "Can we watch Harry Potter?" It's basically a Halloween.
It's spooky shit all year for them.
It's not spooky.
There's a bald no-nose demon after him most of the time.
I mean, he's only in half the films.
Yeah, Frozen came out in mid-November.
Okay.
So.
Thanksgiving.
I get it, but no.
No, I agree.
Again, it's not about kind of Christmassy vibes. I get you could see like a Christmas witch Gryla situation going on, but again, these series of podcasts in December are about alternative Christmas films and about or alternative holiday films, whatever you celebrate, and this is definitely on that list. And you could put this on again. Probably doesn't warm your cockles like a Muppets Christmas Carol or something like that, but it's an option for you if you're not feeling maybe particularly festive or you want to watch something different this year.
On that note, just to say, I only found this out the other day. Muppets Christmas Carol, you can watch on Disney Plus. They've got an extended version, and what you do is you click on Muppets Christmas Carol, you click on extras, and in the extras there's Muppets Christmas Carol extended cut, and it's got two extra scenes in it, including the originally cut Michael Caine song.
Oh,
he sings. Yeah, so I found that out only the other day. So that's my Christmas cheer. That's my gift to everyone.
There you go.
The Muppets Christmas Carol
extended edition.
So this year, when you watch that film for the 50th time, you can watch it with about 5 extra minutes. So
that's our Christmas treat. Before we finish, guys, I do have a listener comment.
Yes.
Ooh.
So my patron and guest as well. She's coming back to do Van Helsing in February.
It's a cracking movie.
I bloody
love that film.
There we go.
So
well,
not too weird for Megan.
Not too weird.
It's right. Okay, I will say I have not seen that film in years.
But you're like,
I remember enjoying it. I had it on DVD. It was one of those. It was one of the films that I used to watch like fairly regularly.
I did the same as well. I
Forrest Gump.
I love.
Don't get started on that.
I mean, Van Helsing came out when like Wolverine obviously came, like the X-Men films came out. So I was just obsessed with Hugh Jackman. I was like, oh my god, it's basically Wolverine but with vampires. This sounds.
It
awesome.
was even has memory problems. There you go.
Yeah, exactly.
He's being typecast,
and he's got a lot of almost entanglements with a redhead. who's got a lot of powers.
You're right,
We could do almost a clone boss.
Oh, maybe.
Sorry, back to the comment.
Anyway, back to Sarah's comment. She says, I remember being really intrigued by the advert for this film because it framed it almost like a horror film rather than a drama. The film does an excellent job at capturing how stifling royal life must have been for Diana at that point in her life. And seeing her struggle with an eating disorder was really powerful. Kristen Stewart absolutely devours this role. She's unrecognisable and wholly committed. Probably my favourite performance of Diana, who is allowed to be more than just an eyelash-batting waif, as she's so often portrayed. I appreciated the parallel with Anne Boleyn that the film explores throughout, but I feel like the film was afraid to be too artsy with it. Like I said, I think full horror could have made this an interesting take, but a great film, shot beautifully, with wonderful performances that very much humanises its lead.
I think that's very well put, and that comment, so thank you, Sarah, has just made me have a realisation. I feel like, you know what would have been better with the Anne Boleyn thing and the Maggie thing?
Mm-hmm.
If on that scene on the beach, Maggie turned into Anne Boleyn, and it turned out that every time that she was seeing Anne Boleyn, she was actually seeing Maggie, or that it could be left ambiguous that Maggie/Anne Boleyn didn't necessarily exist. You'd have to tweak the middle bit where she demands that Maggie comes back.
Sure,
because at that point you'd have to say who's Maggie, and that would have been the twist. Or I think Anne Boleyn and Maggie were kind of, they feel like almost the same character, and I think that could have worked better for me if at some point it indicated that when Diana saw Anne Boleyn, it was actually Maggie or vice versa. But that was it. But thank you, Sarah, for making me have that thought.
Right, really, really good comment. I really appreciate you messaging before we did this. But yeah, that was excellent. Any other final thoughts, Megan or Mike, about the film? Anything you want to say? Anything we've not mentioned? Any scenes or what have you?
I don't think so. Yeah, I did like it. I liked it. I don't know if I liked it more than I thought I was going to, because I thought I would like it going into it. But I did. Yeah, I very much enjoyed it.
I think we didn't know the vibe. Neither of us looked at anything to do with this. And then so we started watching it. Oh, it's going to be a Diana biopic kind of thing. And then after the first few minutes, we're like, oh, I'm getting the favourite vibes. And then after one or two scenes, we're like, oh, we're both on board with this.
Yeah, I'm glad it's not as weird as the favourite. I probably wouldn't have enjoyed it as much if it had turned quirkier than what it already is. But no, I thoroughly enjoyed this film.
Same. Thank you for making us watch it, Dan.
Yeah, I've forced you to watch it. I really enjoyed it as well. I wasn't expecting to like it as much as I did, but I thought it was excellent. I really like the happy moments as well, the joyous moments with the kids. And again, like Pablo Larrain made this for his mum, because she was like, I don't like any of your movies, and he's like, right, I'm going to make this for you, and she still styles her hair like Diana to this day. So he was like, I'm going to make you a film. And as he went on, I think he started thinking about like motherhood, and that this film is a lot about being a mother, and doing the best for your kids and putting yourself in harm's way, quite literally. And I love the end. I love them singing, and like them having a normal life at the end.
That was cute.
And them going to KFC and eating fast food and being silly and having fun. That was really nice. After
her being silly is some of the best parts.
Yeah, I think so.
It did make me laugh though, because at the end they're eating the KFC. She's obviously disguised because she's wearing a cap, and I'm like, the kids aren't wearing any kind of disguise. I'm like, why are they not wearing caps? Surely
we don't recognize them.
They didn't actually go to KFC, Megan.
It's not historically accurate.
There wasn't actually a KFC built there at the time. It was built there 2 or 3 years later.
Actually, so sorry, you got that film. Your film is wrong.
She got the box meal. Actually, the box meal didn't come out until 2008. Actually, so he's laughing now.
No boneless banquets for you, Diana. No.
Bloody love a boneless banquet.
Oh, that's one of my favourites as well.
It's so good.
I went to Wingstop the other night.
We got one of them near us.
Yeah, it was really, really good. Expensive. I won't be going very often. Maybe once in a while I'll treat myself like a fast guy, Five Guys rather. Fast guy. Fast guys.
That's down when he goes to Five
Guys. That's me running in my yellow pirate suit, my SpongeBob suit, just running. Gotta get away from the royal family. Gotta run away from my responsibilities.
No, Andrew, no.
But yeah, no, I really thought this was such a really wonderful journey and a kind of a microscope to what Diana was and what she meant to people. And yeah, I think it was great. And yeah, highly recommend. Again, know what you're going in for. It's kind of a ghost story. Like even Kristen Stewart said, I feel like I'm still haunted by Diana because of all the kind of stuff she did, and people talk about her kind of embodying that role, and I can definitely see it. Like it's not again, it's not like a perfect impression of her, but I kind of didn't want it to be either.
It worked in the vibe of the movie.
Yeah, it all fit. It all works for me. Like the whole everything. I can't say a bad word about it. I really thought this was truly, truly excellent. Highly recommend. Go check it out if you've not seen it. I think even kind of horror aficionados might quite like this. Or I
got Midsummer vibes in the middle of Midsummer.
Yeah,
right before everything goes nuts. It's like everything's a bit off. Yeah, I don't know why, and that's a lot of what this film feels like.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 100% agree. Right. Well, thank you guys. I know you've not been well, Megan, so thank you for sticking with us and going through this. I've had a really good time. I loved hearing your opinions on this. I'll try not to force any more direct questions at you in the future. But I'll ask Mike. He'll give me your opinion, and then you can say, "Oh, I had that idea. That was mine." Feel free to do that. That's brilliant. But yes, this is our first kind of alternativity stories of this year. So thank you for joining in and joining us again. We've got some interesting stuff coming up. Next is going to be me and Jack doing top 5 TV holiday specials. So we'll be
very big thing in British culture, isn't it?
Yeah, very.
We do love a holiday special.
Yeah.
I bet The Office is going to be in one of those.
Oh, The Office. Yeah. Any others you want to suggest?
Gavin and Stacey.
Gavin and Stacey is shit, so that's garbage show. Garbage.
You get in the bin. You get in the bin.
No. We rewatched it a couple years ago, and I was like, this actually is still.
I'm sorry,
works
what did you just say?
We watched Gavin and Stacey a couple of years ago.
I thought you said a couple of days ago, and I was like, no, we bloody did it.
It was a couple of years ago. No, I was skeptical. I was skeptical for ages. I rewatched it. I was like, actually, this show's great. But Gavin and Stacey,
Doctor Who
is, although most of the Doctor Who Christmas specials,
there's a million of those, isn't there?
All right, I'm just saying TV programs.
I'm not
Christmas specials.
I'm not complaining.
Why are you yelling at me, Dan?
I'm just saying.
Office UK.
I mean, there's a million of them, so you can't really be that
extras.
specific. You have to choose.
I mean, Americans kind of.
I didn't like the extras one. I didn't like the extras.
Megan hasn't seen extras, but they have
like
like
extras,
a lot of.
But I didn't like that Christmas special.
I want to show her some of the Daniel Radcliffe extras episode. I've got to show Megan.
Oh, the Ian McKellen one's great as well.
Oh yeah,
that's one of my favourites.
Act. You just have to imagine be an actor.
There's been a good couple of what's it bloody called? Only Fools and Horses Christmas episodes.
Yeah,
they were pretty good.
Yeah. We watched a few. I watched a few of those while I was on holiday. Weirdly, those were ones that kind of cropped up. I think it was on the list of films episodes, and they were at the top, so we watched.
I drove next to a car like that the other day.
Yeah,
Red Robin.
Yeah, it was it was the car from. Well, it wasn't the car, but it was a Red Robin that was designed up to look like Trott's Independent Traders.
Yeah. Nice. I do like Only Fools and Horses. That's one of my favourites. But yes, well, that's
it's trash. I hate
it's garbage.
No, shut up, Mike.
I'm legally not, as a British person, allowed to say anything aside from it's not for me, but I'm not allowed to insult it because it's part of our culture.
Yeah, but I will insult Gavin and Stacey all day.
Because you hate the Welsh.
Yes, exactly.
Bloody Northerners hating the Welsh,
especially the Prince of Wales.
Hey, there we go.
Boo. Princess of Wales, all right though. She's all right. She'll do. She was fine. She's all right. Not a saint. Right. So before we go, Mike and Megan, you have a wonderful Patreon. You have some wonderful podcasts together. Yes. Where can people find you?
So we're going to be doing festive films, which we need to start soon, actually. But with Skeleton Crew was already out at the moment.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
So I haven't watched it yet. I'm going to be watching that tomorrow. So on top of Skeleton Crew and obviously watching for this, in between that, because Bake Off is now finished and Drag Race is basically all finished, we're going to be watching festive films.
Megan is now going to cease to exist.
Yeah,
well, Megan,
I'm going to dry up like a prune.
No, because your idea was festive films, because I mean your idea was also spooky season, which is
festive films because I love Christmas movies.
Yeah, so we're going to watch a bunch of Christmas films and going to release them sporadically over Patreon.
We're going to watch The Nativity.
God, I don't like that film. But we're going to watch some Christmas films. We're going to talk about them, and we're going to try and release them sporadically, like we do a spooky season in October, where we released like somewhere between like 8 and 15 bonus episodes to patrons. Throughout the day, and also
throughout
the week, throughout the month. And I'm going to be doing Clone Wars Christmas as well, which is an episode of Clone Wars Conversations every week on Genuine Chit Chat to get us all caught up, because I'm like 5 episodes recorded, and I can't release one a month anymore because we'll be done till mid next year. So releasing loads of Clone Wars conversations. There'll be a few Patreon exclusives that were from last year that I'm putting on the feed. So people who subscribe who aren't into Star Wars will still find lots of fun stuff there too. And back to filmography, I think that episode I'm on is going to be showing up soon.
Yeah, I believe so.
As well. But yeah, follow me at Genuine Chit Chat and all the social media places. When was the last time you even posted on Instagram?
A while ago.
It
comes in waves.
It comes in waves. But if you follow me and check my story, you'll see pictures of me and Willow and me and Megan occasionally.
Yeah.
So
9th of November is the last time I posted on Instagram.
That's not even that long ago.
It's less than a month ago.
There you go. So. There you go. That's pretty good. That's pretty recent. Yeah. So yeah, go and check everybody out. I'll leave everything in the show notes and whatever else I want to throw in there.
On Skeleton Crew, I just said there'll be the weekly discussion show that'll be out by the time this comes out. And Dan, I'm going to drag you on there because you.
Oh, absolutely.
Keep saying you'll come on my show.
No, I'm looking.
Keep saying I'll come on your show and then you don't. So
what?
Illness. Excuse me.
Well, okay.
Prior commitment.
Okay,
you promised it to someone else.
There was illness. There was the internet connection. But I recorded something for that.
And there was the prior commitment because you agreed to do every week of the Attention Seeking Geek. So there's been three different occasions.
I did. I know. And this is why I'm
joking aside.
Why are you airing out all the dirty
No, I am joking aside. I have no issue.
He hates me, Megan. He hates
That's
me.
why I said
rude. Divorce.
No. I'm to listeners.
No, Megan, you've got to be two people. One that likes Mike and the public one that hates him.
Okay, there we go. No, generally, I've got no issue with that, Dan, at all, to clarify to all the listeners, because illness is fine, prior commitments I respect, and internet connection can't help.
And I also sent that exceptionally long half-an-hour take on the
and I went through all of it, and I edited it down.
I know,
and cut it in the episodes, almost like you were there.
It was. I appreciated that. It made me feel like I was involved. I was like, I think I can actually include this in collaborations because I'm kind of in it.
100%.
It's not just like a comment at the end or half an hour at the end or something. But no, I appreciated you doing that. It made me feel kind of integral in that discussion. So a lot of cool jumping off points you went off on as well, which I thought was good. And all because of me. So yes, I like that. But yeah, thank you again. You can find me at spiderdownandthesecretballs.com, and I'd like to thank all my patrons, including Mike Burton, Tony Farina, I Am Jack's Musing, Simon Cotton, Paul Meller, Mike Burton again. We might as well mention him twice. Angry Andy, Tonya Todd, Math, Scott Hodgson, Rhea Carrigan, and Sarah Coyne. Thank you for your continuing donations. It is very much appreciated and helps Prattle World keep on turning. And you know what? I'm going to plug one of my own podcasts with Mike that just came out and people really like, which was our top 5 movies featuring a minimal cast. Very popular. Got a lot of nice press for that. So thank you, Mike. Great topic picked by the patrons. And
let's get it up to number 2, guys. Number 1 is my other pod with Dan. Let's get number 2.
Mike's the most popular. Make him the second most popular as well. But also this one, make Megan just as popular so she can
monopolize
rub it in Mike's face. That's what she's going to do.
Make me number 1.
Do it. Thank you, guys. This has been wonderful, and I'm sure we'll be podcasting again very, very soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.